I am Dina Harris, 31 years old. On the day my manager, Lila, stood in front of the entire office and accused me of stealing company funds, the room went silent, except for the hum of the overhead lights. My body went cold, my hands gripping the edge of my desk as every eye turned toward me, suspicion dripping from their stares. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the open floor, making the beige walls look like prison bars. Lila's voice echoed sharp as glass. Dinah, do you care to explain why the audit shows missing entries under your login? My throat closed up. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. What? I whispered, my voice too soft to carry. Lila raised an eyebrow, arms folded, her posture screaming judgment. Before I share how this betrayal unfolded, let me know where you are watching from and subscribe if you value standing up for yourself. Behind her, Terry smirked. I didn't even need to see his face fully. I could feel his satisfaction radiating. He'd always had it out for me, mocking me whenever I stayed late or when I skipped Friday happy hours. He lived for moments like this. I don't know what you're talking about, I finally stammered, but my words sounded weak, like excuses. People shifted in their chairs. Some exchanged glances. Others looked away as if catching my shame might be contagious. Lila didn't shout. That was the worst part. She delivered her lines calmly, like a judge passing sentence. Until we clear this matter, I think it's best you step aside from sensitive accounts. The humiliation landed like a punch. Step aside? I'd built a reputation for being meticulous, reliable. My work was my shield. Now she was stripping that away in front of everyone. I sank into my chair, trying to disappear, but whispers swirled around the office. The open layout meant there was no escape. The teamwork posters on the walls mocked me, their glossy smiles and slogans about integrity twisting into lies. My computer screen reflected my pale face, wide eyes rimmed red. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a takeout container of lo mein gone cold. The city outside my window buzzed with life, honking horns, laughter from the bar downstairs. But I felt frozen, numb. My phone buzzed. A message from Terry lit up the screen. Guess your perfect streak's over. Karma, huh? I dropped the phone like it burned me. He'd always hated me. But this felt different. This felt orchestrated. Growing up in a small town outside Indianapolis, I was used to being underestimated. My parents owned a bakery, and by the time I was 8, I was rolling dough at dawn. Work taught me discipline before school did. When other kids played, I balanced cash drawers and learned how a penny misplaced could throw off the whole day. Numbers made sense to me in a way people didn't. At school, I was never the loud one. My grades did the talking. In high school, while classmates obsessed over prom dresses and basketball games, I obsessed over equations and ledgers. Teachers called me reliable. Reliable became my identity. I didn't need to shine. I just needed to be steady. That steady rhythm carried me through college and into accounting. I liked order. I liked how numbers told the truth. But the truth, I was learning, could be twisted by people who played louder and dirtier games. When I first joined the firm in Chicago, I thought I had found my place. The skyline outside our windows felt like a promise. I told myself if I kept my head down and worked hard, people would see my value. But the office wasn't about hard work. It was about alliances, laughter at the right jokes, drinks with the right people. Terry thrived in that world. Loud, charming, always quick with a story. Lila adored him. He played the part of team player while I became the odd one out. At first, it was little things. Not being invited to lunch. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Whispers that stopped when I walked by. Then came the digs. You know Dina's probably home knitting on a Friday night, Terry would say, and laughter would follow. I laughed it off at first, telling myself it didn't matter. But it wore on me. And now, Lila had handed them the perfect weapon. An accusation that struck at the very thing I valued, my integrity. At midnight, I pulled my laptop closer, determined to prove my innocence. I combed through every entry tied to my login. Hours blurred. My apartment, usually my safe space, felt claustrophobic. The hum of the refrigerator was too loud, the shadows too sharp. But no matter how many rows of numbers I checked, nothing looked wrong. Nothing I could use to defend myself. By 3 a.m, exhaustion won. I fell asleep on the couch, laptop open, the cursor blinking like a taunt. The next day, whispers followed me from the elevator to my desk. Conversations hushed when I passed. My inbox was empty, no new projects, no updates. Isolation settled in like a fog. "Rough night?" Terry asked as he sauntered by, coffee in hand. His grin widened when I didn't respond. I wanted to scream, to tell them all this wasn't me. But I stayed silent, because deep down I knew. Once trust cracked in an office like this, it never healed. That evening, as the office emptied, I stayed behind. My hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling. Something wasn't adding up. I knew my work. I knew I hadn't made mistakes, which meant someone else wanted me to look guilty. The realization hit like ice water. Someone was framing me, and the worst part? Everyone was ready to believe it. I closed my laptop, the city lights outside reflecting in the dark window. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sure hard work would be enough to save me, but one thought burned hotter than fear. If they wanted to destroy me, they had underestimated just how much fight I had left. The morning after Lila's public accusation, I walked into the office with my shoulders squared, rehearsing steady breaths like a soldier entering battle. The elevator dinged, its polished chrome doors reflecting back an image of me that looked calmer than I felt. My chest still carried the weight of shame, but I couldn't let them see me crumble. The floor was already buzzing when I stepped out. Phones rang, keyboards clattered, and the low hum of gossip seemed to thrum just beneath it all. My heels clicked against the tile, a sound that felt too loud, too exposed. Heads turned, eyes darted away, and then came the whispers. They weren't subtle anymore. "Did you hear she's suspended from accounts? Can you believe it? Always thought she was too perfect. Probably thought she wouldn't get caught." The words sliced through me. I kept my gaze locked forward, but inside, I felt every glance like a needle pressing into my skin. When I reached my desk, the sight stopped me cold. My chair was pulled out, my computer screen black. A sticky note sat on my keyboard in Lila's precise handwriting. "Meet me in my office. 9 a.m. sharp." My hands tightened into fists. I wasn't sure if the note was an invitation to redemption or another step toward execution. At 9, I walked into Lila's office. The blinds were open, sunlight pouring in to highlight her immaculate desk. She didn't look up when I entered. Instead, she tapped her pen against a folder. "Sit," she said, finally meeting my eyes. Her expression was calm. Too calm. I sat, back straight, every muscle taut. "We've run another check," Lila began, sliding the folder closer to me, "and the inconsistencies are still under your login. Funds missing, entries altered. It doesn't look good, Dina." "I didn't do it," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Lila tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "Then explain it. If it wasn't you, who was it?" The question twisted like a knife. She wasn't asking for truth. She wanted a name, a scapegoat. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I'll find out." A small smirk touched her lips, gone as quickly as it appeared. "That's not your job anymore. Effective immediately, I'm removing you from all financial projects. HR will reassign you to administrative support until this is cleared." Administrative support. It wasn't just a demotion, it was humiliation. "You can't," I started. "I can," Lila interrupted, her voice crisp. "And I will." Dismissed. I walked out of her office with my heart pounding. The walls of the hallway seemed to close in on me, the framed certificates and motivational posters glaring down like judges. By the time I reached my desk, Terry was waiting, leaning casually against the divider. "Tough meeting?" he asked, his grin wide. I ignored him, pushing past to sit down. But he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Word of advice? Quit before they fire you. Less embarrassing that way." I clenched my jaw. I wanted to scream, to demand why he hated me so much, but I bit it back. Giving him the satisfaction of seeing me crack wasn't an option. The rest of the day blurred in humiliation. Instead of the spreadsheets and audits I was trained for, I was handed clerical tasks, scheduling meetings, sorting documents, making copies. My colleagues avoided me like I was contagious. Every time I passed the break room, laughter trailed behind me, and I knew I was the punchline. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, memories flashing like a cruel montage. My father teaching me to balance the bakery's cash register, my professors praising my precision in class. My early days at the firm, when I thought being the hardest worker would earn me respect. And then Terry's smirk, Lila's dismissive tone, the whispers. At 2 a.m., I got up, brewed a pot of coffee, and opened my laptop. If they thought I would roll over, they were wrong. I dug into access logs, timestamps, patterns. I wasn't supposed to have account clearance anymore, but I still had copies of past reports I'd worked on. As I compared them line by line, something caught my eye, a series of late-night entries logged under my name. Entries made at times I knew I wasn't working. I pulled up my calendar. On those nights, I had been at dinner with friends, one time even out of town for my cousin's wedding. There was no way I could have entered them. My pulse quickened. Someone was using my login. But who had access? My password was strong, random, impossible to guess. Unless someone inside the office had found a way in. The next morning, I carried the evidence with me on a flash drive, my chest pounding with cautious hope. But when I showed up at work, Lila shut me down before I could even start. "Not now, Dina," she said, brushing past me with a coffee cup in hand. "But this proves—" I said not now. Her eyes cut through me, sharp and cold. Terry passed by at that moment, and for the briefest second, his smirk faltered. He looked nervous. My stomach twisted. Was it him? He was one of the few with system clearance, and he'd always wanted to see me fall. The thought burrowed deep, refusing to let go. By lunchtime, I couldn't focus. I walked outside into the chilly Chicago air, the wind biting my cheeks. Crowds bustled around me, but I felt alone, isolated. I stopped at a small bench, pulling out my phone. I called my oldest friend, Jenna. She picked up on the second ring. "Dina, you sound terrible." I laughed bitterly. "Thanks, that's what I needed to hear." "What's going on?" she pressed. I told her everything. Lila's accusations, the demotion, the whispers, the evidence I'd found. She listened quietly, only interjecting with the occasional gasp. "Nat, this is serious," she said when I finished. "If someone's framing you, you need proof. Real proof. Screenshots, logs, something undeniable." "I'm working on it," I murmured. "No," she said firmly. "You need to cover yourself now. Document everything. Dates, times, who said what. Don't let them bury you." Her words steadied me. She was right. I couldn't just defend myself. I had to build a case. When I returned to the office, I noticed something strange. Terry was at my desk. He jumped when I walked up, quickly shoving something into his pocket. "What are you doing?" I demanded. He flashed that easy grin. "Relax, just borrowing a pen." But my gut screamed otherwise. That night, I locked my laptop with a new password and tucked my flash drive into a safe spot. For the first time, I allowed myself to consider the possibility fully. Terry wasn't just mocking me. He was behind this. And if I was right, I wasn't just fighting whispers anymore. I was fighting for my career, for my name, for everything I had built. I sat at my desk, the Chicago skyline glowing outside my window, and whispered to myself, "If this is war, then so be it." The next morning, I woke up with determination stiffening my spine. The humiliation of clerical tasks and whispers was still raw, but something had shifted in me. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning. I left my apartment earlier than usual, the cold Chicago air bracing as I walked to the train. The city was just waking up, steam rising from manholes, streetlights blinking off one by one. My reflection in the train window looked older, sharper, but steadier. By the time I reached the office, I had a plan. If Terry was framing me, I needed evidence that connected him directly to the tampered files. My first step was to pay closer attention. Inside, the office buzzed with its usual rhythm, but the atmosphere still clung to me like smoke after a fire. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic smile, though her eyes flicked nervously to the side as Lila walked by. Lila didn't even acknowledge me. She was surrounded by a small group, Terry at her side, laughing at something he said. I watched them closely. Lila's posture was confident, commanding, but her laugh came half a beat too late, like she was forcing it. Terry leaned in just enough to make it look like they were in on some private joke. My stomach turned. Had he convinced her I was guilty? Or was she just enjoying watching me squirm? At my desk, I noticed something strange again. My computer screen was unlocked, though I knew I had logged out before leaving yesterday. A pit formed in my stomach. I glanced around. Terry was at his desk, but when our eyes met, he looked away too quickly. I logged in, scanning for any signs of tampering. Nothing obvious. But then again, whoever was behind this wouldn't leave blatant evidence lying around. At lunch, I avoided the break room and instead slipped into the archives, a small, dusty room filled with paper files and old binders. Hardly anyone went in there anymore, but it was quiet, private. I pulled out past audit reports, tracing the patterns. The late-night entries under my login always happened after Terry stayed late. I remembered seeing him at his desk on some of those nights, claiming he was wrapping things up. My chest tightened. The pieces fit, but I still needed proof. As I flipped through the files, the door creaked open. I froze. Terry stepped in, surprise flashing across his face before it hardened into that smug grin. Well, he said, closing the door behind him. Digging for treasure? I'm reviewing old reports, I replied coolly, sliding a binder back onto the shelf. He walked closer, his footsteps deliberate. Careful, Dina. People might think you're trying to cover your tracks. I don't have tracks to cover, I shot back. His grin widened, but his eyes were cold. Then why are you here hiding with the old paperwork? I steadied my breath. Because I actually do my job. Not that you'd know much about that. For the first time, his smirk faltered. Just for a moment, but I caught it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're playing a dangerous game. If you were smart, you'd walk away before you embarrass yourself even more. I held his gaze. And if you were smart, you'd stop underestimating me. For a beat, the air between us was tense, charged. Then he chuckled, shook his head, and walked out. When the door closed, I sank against the shelves, my heart racing. His reaction had told me more than any report could. He was hiding something. That night, I called Jenna again. Terry confronted me today, I said, pacing my apartment. He knows I'm digging. Then you're onto something, she said firmly. You need hard proof, Nat. Something undeniable. Can you track the system logs? I already tried, I sighed. But I don't have clearance anymore. Lila stripped me of it. Then find someone who still does, Jenna said simply. The thought settled heavy in my chest. Who could I trust? Most of the office avoided me now. But then I thought of Adam, one of the junior analysts. He'd always been kind, offering small smiles when others turned away. Maybe he could help. The next morning I caught Adam by the coffee machine. Hey, I said softly. Can I talk to you? He looked startled, but nodded. We stepped into a quiet hallway. I need a favor, I began. And I know it's asking a lot, but I think someone's framing me. I just need access to a few system logs. If I'm wrong, I'll leave it alone. But if I'm right? Adam hesitated, glancing around nervously. If anyone finds out I helped you, I could lose my job. I know, I said quickly. And I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. But please, Adam, I need this. He studied me for a long moment, then sighed. I'll see what I can do. Meet me after hours. less chance of anyone noticing. Hope flickered in my chest. That evening, we sat in the dim light of the office, the hum of computers surrounding us. Adam typed swiftly, navigating the system with ease. Finally, he pulled up the logs. "There," he said, pointing to the screen. "Entries under your login. But look, they're all from one workstation, not yours." I leaned in, my breath catching. The workstation ID matched Terry's desk. "Can you screenshot this?" I whispered. Adam nodded, printing out copies and saving digital backups. I held the papers in my hands, my heart pounding. Proof. Finally, undeniable proof. "Thank you," I told him, my voice thick with emotion. "Be careful, Dina," Adam warned. "If Terry is bold enough to do this, he won't stop easily." I nodded, tucking the papers into my bag. He was right. This wasn't over. As I left the office, the city lights stretched before me, glowing against the night sky. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of control returning. But control was fragile, and I knew Terry wouldn't sit quietly once he realized I was onto him. The war had only just begun. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. My body felt heavy, but my mind was racing. The proof sat inside my bag like a loaded weapon, Terry's workstation tied directly to the tampered reports. I knew I couldn't rush. Evidence meant nothing without timing, and timing meant everything. At the gym where I usually went to clear my head, I couldn't focus. My punches hit the bag harder than usual, the leather squeaking under my gloves. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Terry smirk, heard his voice dripping with condescension. By the time I showered and dressed for work, I had a plan. Step 1, protect the evidence. Step 2, make sure Terry couldn't spin this back on me. Step 3, wait for the right moment to strike. When I arrived at the office, the air felt different. People whispered, eyes darting between me and Terry, who leaned casually against Lila's desk. He looked like he owned the place, laughing too loudly at something she said. My stomach twisted. Lila deserved better leadership than this snake whispering in her ear. I slipped past them, keeping my face neutral. At my desk, I tucked the copies of the logs into a secure folder inside my bag. The originals stayed at home in a locked drawer. If Terry tried anything, I wasn't going down without a fight. Mid-morning, Lila called me into her office. The blinds were half closed, sunlight slanting across her desk. She didn't ask me to sit. "Dina," she began, her tone sharp. "I'm concerned about your performance. You've been distracted." I held her gaze. "Distracted or undermined?" Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "You've taken me off client accounts and stripped my access," I said evenly. "Meanwhile, Terry has been whispering in your ear. Doesn't that strike you as odd?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Terry has been helpful during this transitional period. Unlike you, he hasn't been caught sneaking around after hours." The accusation hit me like a slap. He'd twisted it just as I feared. "I was reviewing files because I care about this company," I shot back. "Because someone has been tampering with reports, and it's not me." Lila leaned back, folding her arms. "Do you have proof?" The question hung in the air like a trap. My fingers itched to pull the papers from my bag and slam them on her desk, but instinct told me it wasn't the time. "Not yet. Soon," I said, my voice steady. "And when I do, you'll see exactly who's been playing you." Her face hardened. "Careful, Dina. Empty threats don't help your case." I left her office with my heart hammering. Terry was already tightening his grip. I needed to move faster. That evening, I met Jenna at a small cafe near the river. She listened quietly as I laid everything out, her brow furrowed. "You've got enough to take him down," she said. "Why wait?" "Because Lila doesn't trust me right now," I explained. "If I go to her too soon, Terry will twist it. I need him to expose himself, Jenna. I need him cornered." She sipped her coffee, then leaned in, then bait him. Make him think he's winning while you set the trap. The idea sparked something inside me. Dangerous, but brilliant. The next day, I started playing the part. I kept my head down, acted timid whenever Terry strutted by. He fed on it, growing bolder with every passing hour. He started giving me extra clerical tasks, dropping them on my desk with a smirk. "File these, Dina," he said one afternoon, tossing a stack of papers down. "Should be easy enough for you." I bit back my anger, lowered my eyes, and nodded. Let him think he'd broken me. But behind the mask, I was watching. Every move, every slip. Late that night, Adam messaged me. "We need to meet. Something's happening." We met in the archives, the room dimly lit by a single overhead bulb. He handed me another set of logs. "Terry has been accessing files under Lila's login now," Adam whispered. "If she checks, it'll look like she's been altering reports herself." My blood ran cold. He wasn't just framing me anymore. He was covering his tracks by dragging Lila down with him. "This is worse than I thought," I murmured. "He's trying to take her out too." Adam nodded grimly. "If she finds out before you show her the truth, Terry will spin it like you set her up." I clutched the papers, my mind racing. I had to act, but how? The answer came the following morning during the weekly staff meeting. Everyone gathered in the conference room, the air thick with coffee and tension. Lila sat at the head of the table, Terry at her side. Grinning like he owned the place, he started the meeting with a slick presentation about efficiency improvements, throwing subtle digs my way, about errors in the past and learning from mistakes. People chuckled nervously, some glancing at me. That's when it hit me. He was overconfident, and overconfidence was the crack in his armor. I waited until he finished, then raised my hand. "Terry, quick question," I said, keeping my tone polite. "When exactly did you start handling Lila's files?" The room went still. Terry blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "You've been accessing reports under her login," I continued calmly. "Late at night. Strange, isn't it?" Lila's eyes snapped to him, sharp with suspicion. The color drained from his face, but only for a second. Then he laughed, shaking his head. "Are you seriously accusing me now? After everything you've pulled?" He turned to Lila. "See? She's desperate." I smiled faintly. "Funny you say that, Terry, because I have the system logs right here." Gasps rippled through the room. I pulled the papers from my folder, laying them flat on the table. The evidence spoke louder than any words. Terry lunged forward, trying to snatch them, but Lila's hand shot out first. She scanned the logs, her face paling. "Terry," she said slowly, her voice like ice, "why does your workstation ID appear on every altered report?" He stammered, searching for words, but the room had already turned. Whispers filled the air, colleagues staring at him with wide eyes. I sat back, my pulse pounding but steady. The trap had sprung. The silence in the conference room was thick enough to choke on. Lila's fingers gripped the edges of the papers I'd handed her, her eyes darting back and forth across the lines of code and timestamps. The room full of colleagues leaned forward as though straining to hear a pin drop. Terry, once so smug and unshakable, suddenly looked cornered. His lips trembled as he tried to recover. "This is ridiculous," he finally sputtered, his voice breaking the silence. Anyone could have forged these logs. Dina clearly doctored them to save herself. I leaned back in my chair, steady but deliberate. "Really? Then explain why Adam's system checks show your workstation ID. Explain why files were altered on nights I wasn't even in the building." Terry's eyes flickered toward Adam. And in that split second, everyone saw his mask slip. Adam met his stare coolly, arms crossed. He wasn't going to back down. Lila slammed the papers down onto the table, the sound sharp enough to make everyone flinch. "Terry, I expect honesty in this office, and what I see here is far from it." Terry laughed again, louder this time, a desperate edge to it. "Come on, Lila. You're really going to take her word over mine? She's been undermining you for months. Look at her. She's just bitter because she's not cut out for leadership." The words cut, but I refused to flinch. I met his eyes directly. "Funny. If I'm not cut out for leadership, then why do you keep trying so hard to get rid of me?" A ripple of murmurs spread around the table. People exchanged looks, whispers rising as the tension thickened. For the first time, Terry wasn't in control of the narrative. Lila took a deep breath, pushing her chair back. She stood, the authority in her posture silencing the room. "I need time to review this evidence," she said, her voice clipped. "Terry, my office. Now." He hesitated, then followed her out, but not before throwing me a glare so venomous it sent a shiver down my spine. The door closed behind them, leaving the rest of us in uneasy silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Then someone, Sophie from finance, leaned toward me. "Dina, is it true? Did he really do all that?" I nodded, every word. "And I've got more proof if she needs it." A hush settled again, but this time it wasn't suspicion I saw in their eyes. It was something different. Curiosity. Respect. Maybe even guilt for doubting me all along. The meeting fizzled out quickly after that. People drifted away, whispering in pairs and groups. Adam lingered at my side, his voice low. "You played it perfectly." "I hope so," I said, rubbing my temples. But Terry isn't the type to go quietly. He'll double down before he lets go of control. Adam gave me a grim smile. "Then we'll be ready." That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Lila. "Stay late tomorrow. We need to talk privately." My stomach flipped. Was she siding with me now, or was this a trap? I barely slept that night, tossing and turning, my mind replaying every word, every glance. By dawn, I decided I had no choice but to face whatever came next. The next day at work, Terry avoided me. He walked with his shoulders stiff, his laughter gone, his charm stripped away. I noticed him whispering to two of his closest allies near the break room, his eyes darting toward me as if plotting, but I kept my head down, worked through my tasks, and waited. At exactly 6 p.m., Lila called me into her office. The blinds were drawn tight this time, shutting out the world. Terry sat in one of the chairs, his expression carefully neutral. My chest tightened. "Close the door," Lila instructed. I did, then sat opposite them. Lila's face was unreadable. "I've reviewed the logs you gave me. They check out. I also cross-referenced them with security footage. Terry, you were in this building after hours multiple times without authorization." Terry's calm facade cracked. "That doesn't mean anything. I was working late, making sure reports were ready. That's dedication, Lila, not sabotage." "Dedication?" I cut in. "Or desperation to cover your tracks?" Lila raised a hand to silence us both. Her gaze pinned Terry like a hawk. "I want the truth, Terry. Did you tamper with those reports?" He leaned forward, his voice lowering into a hiss. "You've known me for years. I've supported you when no one else did. Are you really going to throw that away because of her?" Her face tightened. "Answer the question." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then Terry exhaled, his mask finally slipping. "Fine. Maybe I adjusted a few numbers, but only because Dina kept screwing up. I was protecting this company from her incompetence." My fists clenched under the table. "Protecting? You mean framing me?" Lila's voice was cold steel. "That's enough. Terry, you're suspended effective immediately. HR will follow up tomorrow." His head snapped toward her. "You can't do this." "I just did," she said firmly. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. His glare swept between us. "This isn't over," he growled before storming out, the door slamming behind him. I sat frozen, my heart pounding. It was the first victory, but I knew he wasn't finished. People like Terry didn't just fade away. They waited in the shadows, plotting their return. Lila leaned back, her shoulders sagging as though the weight of the world pressed on them. "Dina, I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I let myself be blinded. I should have trusted you sooner. For the first time in weeks, I felt seen." "Thank you," I whispered. She gave me a faint smile. "Don't thank me yet. Terry won't go quietly. Be careful." That night, walking home through the quiet streets of Chicago, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Lila. A text from an unknown number. "You think you've won. But you've just made yourself my enemy, and I don't lose." The words chilled me to the bone. I tightened my grip on my phone, scanning the shadows around me. The city buzzed with its usual life. Cars honking, people laughing outside bars. But suddenly, it all felt sinister. Terry was suspended, but far from defeated. And I knew deep down that the real battle hadn't even started yet. I walked faster, determination building with each step. If he wanted a war, I would give him one. But this time, I wouldn't just defend myself. I would make sure everyone saw him for who he truly was. The dangerous game had only just begun. The text from Terry replayed in my head like a siren. "You've just made yourself my enemy, and I don't lose." The glow of my phone screen burned against the darkness of my apartment that night. I locked the doors, checked the windows, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the message. My chest tightened with a mixture of fear and fury. He wasn't just suspended. He was dangerous. By morning, I had made up my mind. If Terry wanted to play dirty, I was going to fight back, but I'd do it with facts, allies, and strategy. He thrived on shadows and whispers. I would drag everything into the light. At work, the atmosphere had shifted. People whispered when I walked by, but it wasn't suspicion anymore. It was curiosity, maybe even cautious respect. Sophie from finance gave me a small nod, the kind you give someone who just survived a storm. Adam caught me near the elevator. "He texted you, didn't he?" Adam's voice was low but firm. I frowned. "How do you know?" "He did the same to me last year when I caught him skimming off the overtime budget." I didn't have enough proof to bring it forward, and he twisted things until I looked like the problem. The revelation hit me like ice water. "So this isn't new?" Adam shook his head. "Not at all. You're the first person to actually pin him down with hard evidence. He hates losing control. Be careful, Dina. He'll try to flip the narrative again." I nodded, my resolve hardening. Then we stay ahead of him. Later that day, Lila called me into her office. The blinds were half open, sunlight striping across her desk. She gestured for me to sit. "I've spoken with HR," she said. "Terry is officially suspended, but the investigation is ongoing. They're combing through the files you provided. In the meantime, I want you to know you have my full support." Her words should have comforted me, but the tightness in my chest didn't ease. "Support is good, Lila, but what happens when he tries to come back swinging? He's already threatening me." Her brow furrowed. "Threatening you? How?" I slid my phone across the desk, showing her the text. Her jaw tightened. "Unacceptable. I'll make sure HR sees this. In the meantime, document everything. Every text, every email, every encounter. Understood?" "Yes," I said, though my voice shook slightly. She leaned forward, her expression softening. "Dina, I know this has been hell for you, but you've shown incredible resilience. Don't let him scare you back into silence." I swallowed hard and nodded. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Most of the floor was empty, the hum of computers and the distant buzz of fluorescent lights my only company. I was compiling a report for HR when I noticed something odd, a string of failed login attempts on my work account. My heart skipped. Terry. He was trying to break in even from outside. I immediately called IT. A tired-sounding technician picked up. "This is Dina Rivera from accounting," I said quickly. "I'm seeing multiple failed login attempts on my account. Can you trace them?" There was a pause, the sound of rapid typing on the other end. "Yeah, I see it. They're coming from an external IP address, not company issued. Can you lock it down?" "Already on it. We'll block the IP and flag the attempts." "But Dina," his voice lowered, "this isn't random. Whoever's doing this knows your credentials. Someone close." I thanked him and hung up, my pulse racing. Terry wasn't just threatening me. He was actively trying to sabotage me again, even while suspended. The next day, whispers spread faster than wildfire. Apparently, Terry had been reaching out to colleagues, spinning a new story. According to him, I had staged the evidence with Adam's help to get him out of the way, that I was power-hungry, desperate to climb higher, even if it meant destroying others. Sophie approached me in the break room, her voice hesitant. "Dina, Terry says you've been plotting against him for months. Some people are starting to wonder." I sighed, setting my coffee down with more force than I intended. "Sophie, you saw the logs. You saw Lila's reaction. Do you really think I forged all that?" Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. "I don't. But some people might." That's when it hit me. Terry didn't need truth. He just needed doubt, and if enough doubt spread, HR might hesitate. Lila might waver. I couldn't let that happen. That evening, Adam and I met at a quiet diner off Michigan Avenue. The place smelled of coffee and grease, the neon sign flickering faintly outside. "He's going after the narrative again," I said, stirring my tea absent-mindedly. If he can't win with proof, he'll win with lies. Adam leaned forward. Then we show everyone the truth before he can twist it further. Not just HR, everyone, I frowned. What do you mean? We call a department-wide meeting. You present the facts yourself. The logs, the evidence, everything. No whispers, no side stories. Just the truth in plain sight. My stomach tightened. You really think Lila will approve that? She will if you ask. And if she sees you're not afraid to put it all on the table? The thought terrified me. Standing in front of everyone, laying it all bare. But maybe that was exactly what Terry didn't expect me to do. The following morning, I knocked on Lila's office door with my heart in my throat. She looked up from her laptop, surprised but attentive. I need a chance to address the entire department, I said firmly. Not just HR, not just you, everyone. Terry is already poisoning people against me. If I don't speak now, the rumors will win. Lila studied me for a long moment, then leaned back in her chair. That's bold. It's necessary, I countered. Finally, she nodded. All right. Tomorrow morning, you'll have the floor. My pulse thundered in my ears. Tomorrow, everything would be on the line. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what I would say. The betrayal, the evidence, the truth. Every sentence needed to land like a hammer. Every pause needed to cut through the silence. By dawn, I rose, dressed sharply, and stared at myself in the mirror. No fear, no hesitation. I wasn't the same woman Terry had cornered and belittled weeks ago. When I walked into the office, whispers followed me. But I didn't shrink this time. I held my head high. Adam gave me a reassuring nod as I passed his desk. Sophie offered a small, uncertain smile. The conference room was already filling when I entered. Colleagues shuffled papers, exchanged murmurs. Terry wasn't there, suspended, but his shadow loomed all the same. Lila stood at the front, giving me the floor. I stepped forward, my hands steady on the podium, my voice clear. Thank you all for coming. I know there have been rumors. About me, about Terry, about what's really been happening. Today, I'm going to show you the truth. All of it. The room hushed, all eyes on me. My heart pounded, but my voice didn't waver. I began laying out the story, piece by piece, the evidence projected on the screen behind me. This was it. The counterattack, and I wasn't holding anything back. The silence in the conference room was so heavy it pressed against my chest. Rows of eyes stared at me, some wide with shock, others narrowed in suspicion. The projector behind me glowed with the damning logs, proof that Terry had been stealing, lying, and manipulating for years. I drew in a breath, steadying my voice. This isn't about ambition. It's not about me trying to climb the ladder. This is about accountability. I stayed quiet too long because I was scared, and Terry thrived on that silence. But no more. I clicked to the next slide. Failed login attempts, external IP addresses, the report from IT. The gasps from the room rippled like waves. Sophie raised her hand hesitantly. So he tried to hack into your account? After being suspended? Yes. My tone was sharp but steady. He wanted to erase me. He wanted me gone so badly that even when he was caught, he still couldn't stop. Adam shifted forward in his chair. I can confirm everything Dina's saying. I witnessed similar behavior from him last year. I was afraid to speak out then, but I won't stay silent now. Hearing him step forward gave me strength. For weeks I'd felt like I was carrying this alone, but in that moment, I wasn't. Lila nodded firmly from her seat at the front. Everyone here deserves to know the truth. This isn't just about one person's misconduct. It's about the culture we allow in this workplace. If intimidation wins, none of us are safe. Murmurs broke out. A few heads turned toward each other, whispering, while others nodded with grim expressions. The cracks in Terry's reputation were spreading fast. Later that day, HR called me into a closed-door meeting. The room was stark, with beige walls and a humming vent overhead. A panel of 3 sat across from me, Lila, the head of HR, and a company lawyer. You handled yourself well this morning, Lila began. The HR director folded his hands. But you understand the risks of what you did. Presenting evidence like that to an entire department could expose the company legally. My stomach clenched. So what? I should have just let him keep spreading lies. He was already poisoning people against me. The lawyer cleared his throat. We're not saying you did the wrong thing morally, but from a legal standpoint, it complicates matters. That said, your evidence is overwhelming. Terry won't be returning. The weight of those words hit me. He's fired? The lawyer nodded. Effective immediately. For a moment, relief surged through me like electricity. The nightmare was finally ending. But then another thought crept in, cold and sharp. Terry wasn't the kind of man to just walk away. That evening, I sat on my couch, scrolling through the official HR email that had been sent to the entire company. Terry Halloway is no longer employed with us, effective immediately. We thank him for his past contributions and wish him well, a sanitized farewell. No mention of his crimes, no acknowledgement of the havoc he caused. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A deep, familiar voice oozed through the line. You think you've won, don't you? My breath caught. Terry, he chuckled darkly. They may have thrown me out, but you haven't seen the last of me. You've humiliated me. You've destroyed my career. Do you think I'll just sit back and watch you bask in victory? My grip tightened on the phone. You did this to yourself. I made one mistake, trusting the wrong people. But don't worry, Dina. I'm not finished with you. The line went dead. The threat hung heavy in my apartment. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to steady myself. Even without the company shield, Terry still had claws. The next day at work, things felt different. Lighter, yes, but also tense. People looked at me differently. Some with respect, others with unease. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the woman who had taken down Terry Halloway. Sophie stopped by my desk. You were incredible yesterday, she said softly. But are you okay? You look haunted. I forced a small smile. I'm fine. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. Every creak in my apartment, every buzz on my phone, every shadow in the parking lot after dark made me flinch. Terry was out there, and I didn't know what he would do next. That Friday, as I was leaving the office late, I found my car scratched. Deep gouges along the side door. My stomach dropped. A piece of paper fluttered under the windshield wiper. 4 words scrawled in jagged handwriting. You ruined my life. I grabbed the note with trembling hands, heart pounding. He was escalating. I went straight to the police station, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as I filed a report. The officer at the desk listened, but his expression was detached. Do you have proof he wrote this? I held up the note. It's his handwriting. He's threatened me before. The officer sighed. We'll file it, but unless he harms you directly or we catch him in the act, there's not much we can do. Frustration burned in my chest. Terry could stalk me, threaten me, even vandalize my car. And all I had was a piece of paper in a file. By Monday, word of the car incident had spread through the office. Adam pulled me aside. He's unstable, Dina. You need to protect yourself. Get cameras, alarms, something. I already filed a police report, I said bitterly. They basically shrugged. Then we take matters into our own hands. Adam's jaw tightened. If he shows up here, I'll make sure he doesn't get close to you. The solidarity brought tears to my eyes, but I blinked them away. I don't want you dragged into this any more than you already are. You didn't drag me into it. Terry did. We all let him run unchecked for years. That ends now, his words lit a spark in me. Maybe Terry wanted me terrified, cornered, silenced. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I had faced him once, and I would face him again if I had to. The breaking point came 2 nights later. I was walking back from the gym, the cold Chicago wind biting through my jacket, when I sensed footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate. My pulse quickened. I glanced back. A figure in a dark hoodie too far to identify. I quickened my pace. The footsteps matched, my heart hammered. I darted into a well-lit street, pulling out my phone. The figure kept coming. Then a car horn blared, headlights washing over the street. The figure froze, then turned and disappeared into an alley. I stood trembling under the streetlight, clutching my phone. It could have been anyone, but in my gut I knew. Terry. When I finally got home, I sat at my kitchen table, hands shaking. I couldn't live like this, jumping at shadows, waiting for the next threat. I opened my laptop, staring at the glowing screen. If Terry wanted to fight me in the dark, I'd drag him into the light again. Not just in the office this time, but publicly. It was time to escalate. Not just defense. Not just survival. It was time to strike back harder than ever before. The next morning, I woke with a decision carved into my bones. Fear had dictated my every step for weeks, but I refused to let Terry dictate my life any longer. If the police couldn't protect me, if HR wanted it buried under legal jargon, then I would protect myself. I sat at my kitchen table, the glow of my laptop screen washing over me. My fingers hovered above the keys as I drafted a plan. Terry thrived in the shadows, manipulating, intimidating, always staying just one step away from exposure. If I wanted to end this, I had to drag him into the light again. Only this time, there wouldn't be any escape routes left. Step 1. Gather more evidence. The car note and vandalism weren't enough. He could deny it, blame it on someone else. But if I caught him harassing me again, in a way that left no doubt, it would be over. Step 2. Bait him. He was angry, desperate, and reckless. He wanted me to feel powerless. I had to flip that need against him. Step 3. Make sure I wasn't alone when it happened. By mid-afternoon, I sat with Adam and Sophie in the corner booth of a quiet coffee shop. The aroma of espresso clung to the air, steam fogging the window behind us. My voice was low, urgent. I need your help. I'm going to set a trap. Adam frowned, stirring his untouched coffee. Dina, this guy's dangerous. Setting him up could backfire. Doing nothing is worse, I countered. He's already stalking me. He scratched my car. He followed me home. Next time could be worse. I can't keep waiting for the next hit. Sophie bit her lip, worry flickering across her face. What exactly do you have in mind? I pulled out my phone and showed them a fake social media post I'd drafted. It looked like a casual update. Big presentation tomorrow at 7 p.m. after hours, finally showing off the new project. Can't wait to share. Adam leaned back, eyes narrowing. You're announcing when and where you'll be alone. Exactly, I said. Except I won't be alone. You two will be there, and so will security cameras, Sophie gasped. You're going to lure him into the office? Yes. If he shows up, it proves everything. If he tries to sabotage me, threaten me, anything, we'll have proof. And then the police can't shrug it off anymore. Adam exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. It's risky, but maybe it's the only way. Sophie hesitated before nodding. Okay, we'll help. But promise me you won't put yourself in more danger than necessary. I promise, I said, though the truth was, I wasn't sure any of us could predict how dangerous Terry might become. The next day stretched like an eternity. Every tick of the clock at my desk felt louder, sharper. By 6, the office emptied out, leaving only the hum of air vents and the occasional flicker of fluorescent lights. I stayed behind, heart pounding with each minute. Adam stationed himself near the break room, where he had a clear view of the main entrance. Sophie sat at the reception desk, pretending to scroll her phone, but keeping an eye on the security monitors we had set up. I positioned myself in the conference room, laptop open, the fake presentation slides glowing on the projector. My palms were slick against the keyboard. It was all theater, but Terry wouldn't know that. At exactly 7:12, the front door creaked open. The faint echo carried through the halls, and I stiffened. A shadow stretched across the glass wall of the corridor. Slow, deliberate steps. Sophie's voice buzzed softly in my earpiece. He's here. Terry. He stepped into the conference room without hesitation, like a predator who had stalked his prey 100 times before. His hoodie was pulled low, but I could see his face, twisted with a cruel smirk. Well, well, he drawled. Look who stayed late. Still chasing your little spotlight, Dina? My throat tightened, but I forced myself to stay calm. You shouldn't be here. Oh, I should be here. He stepped closer, slamming a hand on the table. You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone and just walk away? You ruined me. You cost me everything. I held my ground. You ruined yourself. His laugh was hollow, edged with madness. No, you poisoned them against me. You made me the villain, and now I'll return the favor. He reached into his bag and pulled out a thick folder, tossing it onto the table. Papers spilled out, Fake reports, fabricated messages, screenshots clearly altered to frame me as a saboteur. "I'll make sure they know who you really are," Terry hissed. "I'll drag your name through the mud until you choke on it." I glanced at the security camera hidden in the corner, its tiny red light blinking. "Perfect. Go ahead," I said evenly. "Show everyone. Because this time, Terry, you're not the one controlling the story." His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Adam's voice boomed from the doorway. "She's talking about us." Terry spun around. Adam stepped inside, arms crossed, his presence steady as stone. Sophie appeared behind him, holding up her phone. "You're on camera," she said coldly. "Everything you just said. Every threat. Every lie, recorded." For the first time, Terry faltered. His smirk twitched. "You think that'll hold up? No one will believe you." "They will when they see this," Adam replied. Terry's face contorted, rage flaring like a struck match. He lunged toward me, grabbing the edge of my laptop. "You set me up," he roared. I yanked the laptop back. "No, Terry, you set yourself up." "I just gave you the stage," Sophie shouted. "Security's on their way." Terry froze, chest heaving. His eyes darted between us, calculating, desperate. Then, with a guttural growl, he shoved the chair aside and bolted out the door. The three of us scrambled after him, but by the time we reached the lobby, he was gone, vanished into the night like smoke. Back in the conference room, I collapsed into a chair, adrenaline still rattling through my veins. The folder of fake evidence lay scattered on the table, pathetic now in its exposure. Adam clapped a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We got him on tape. He's finished." Sophie nodded, her voice steady. "He can't run forever. Not with this." I exhaled shakily, feeling the first real wave of relief in weeks. Terry had walked right into the trap. But as I stared at the blinking light of the camera, I knew this wasn't the end. He was wounded, cornered, and dangerous. The real reckoning was still coming. And I would be ready. The police didn't waste time after Adam and Sophie handed over the footage. Terry's threats, his fabricated evidence, his attempt to intimidate me on company property. It was all there in high definition. For once, I didn't have to beg someone to believe me. The evidence spoke for itself. But Terry was slippery. When the police came to question him at his apartment, he wasn't there. His landlord said he'd left the night before in a rush, dragging 2 suitcases behind him. It should have terrified me, him being out there, unpredictable. But instead, I felt something sharper, steadier. Resolve. He wasn't going to haunt me anymore. 2 days later, I walked into the office with my head held higher than it had been in months. Colleagues whispered, but their whispers carried a different tone now. Not suspicion, recognition. They'd seen the footage HR had circulated, the official statement about Terry's termination and investigation. Some even came to me with quiet apologies. "I'm sorry I didn't say anything before," one coworker murmured in the break room. I thought it wasn't my place, but you didn't deserve any of that. Their words didn't erase the pain, but they mattered. I wasn't invisible anymore. By noon, Adam stopped by my desk. Update from the cops. They tracked Terry's card use. He's still in the city. My stomach tightened. And they'll find him. It's only a matter of time. I nodded, pretending to focus on my screen. But the truth was, I wanted to be there when they did. I wanted to look Terry in the eye and show him that his power over me was gone. That night, as I left the gym after coaching my last client, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Dina. His voice. Terry. Low, ragged, vibrating with fury. "You think you've won," he spat. "You think some stupid video will erase what you did to me? You humiliated me. You destroyed my career, and I'm not going down without taking you with me." I froze on the sidewalk, cars hissing past in the damp Chicago night. "Terry, it's over. The police are already after you." He laughed, bitter and unhinged. "Police, they don't scare me. You should be scared, because the next time I see you, there won't be cameras. There won't be anyone to save you." Click. The line went dead. I stood there trembling, my breath fogging in the cool air. But this time I didn't crumble. I dialed Adam immediately, repeating every word. By the time I hung up, I'd already decided, if Terry wanted one final confrontation, then fine. I would face him, but not unprepared. The opportunity came faster than I expected. 2 nights later, Sophie texted me in a panic. "He's here, outside the office, just pacing. I think he's waiting for you." I stared at the message, pulse hammering. Fear rose like a tide, but determination anchored me. "Call the police," I texted back. "I'll be there in 10. Adam offered to drive me. As we pulled up near the building, the streetlights cast a pale glow over the glass front. And there he was, Terry. Hood up, hands clenched, pacing like a wolf outside the entrance. Adam touched my arm. "You don't have to do this." "Yes," I whispered. "I do." I stepped out, the night air biting against my skin. Terry froze when he saw me. His lips curved into a twisted grin. "Well, well," he said, voice dripping venom. "Look who showed up! Stop this, Terry," I said firmly. "It's done. You're done." "No," he snarled, taking a step closer. "You ruined me. Now I'm going to ruin you. Everyone will see you're nothing but..." Blue and red lights cut through his words. Sirens wailed as 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop at the curb. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. "Terry Reed! Hands where we can see them." Terry's face contorted, his bravado shattering. He spun, trying to bolt down the alley. But Adam was already there, blocking the path. Terry stumbled, officers swarming him, forcing him to the ground. He screamed, cursed, thrashed, but the cuffs clicked into place with finality. I stood frozen, watching as the man who had terrorized me was finally dragged into the back of a squad car. His eyes found mine through the window, wild with rage and disbelief. "You'll regret this," he shouted, muffled by glass. But for the first time, I didn't flinch. I met his gaze steadily until the car pulled away, sirens fading into the night. The next day, the news spread like wildfire through the office. Terry arrested, charges of harassment, stalking, property damage, and more piling up against him. HR held another meeting, this time praising the bravery it took to come forward. But the truth? Bravery wasn't what carried me through. It was exhaustion. I was tired of being afraid, tired of shrinking in silence, tired of letting someone else dictate the story of my life. Later that week, Sophie and Adam joined me at my apartment for pizza. The mood was lighter than it had been in months. "To Terry being out of our lives," Sophie said, raising her soda can. Adam smirked. "And to Dina, for finally kicking his ass." I laughed, the sound surprising me with its ease. "I didn't kick his ass. I just stopped letting him kick mine." Sophie leaned closer. "You know, you could take all this and use it. Speak out, help others going through the same thing." Her words lingered long after they left that night. Maybe that was the next step. Maybe my story wasn't just about survival, but about showing others that silence wasn't their only option. The following Monday, I walked into the office again. Heads turned, but this time it wasn't whispers of suspicion. It was acknowledgement. Respect. HR had asked me to step into the conference room to discuss next steps. When I opened the door, a dozen colleagues sat waiting. They rose, one by one, clapping softly. I froze, overwhelmed. "You showed us what standing up looks like," one of them said. "Thank you." Tears pricked my eyes. For so long I'd been the target, the victim. But now, in this moment, I was something else entirely. I was free. That night, standing by my window overlooking the city, I let the quiet sink in. The streets below bustled with their usual chaos, but inside me, there was peace. Terry was gone. My fear had loosened its grip. And I knew the real reckoning hadn't been his arrest. It had been me reclaiming my power. The weeks after Terry's arrest felt like stepping into an entirely new life. For the first time in what seemed like forever, I could walk into the office without bracing myself for whispers, snickers, or knives waiting behind polite smiles. The fear that had once been stitched into every corner of my day had loosened its grip, thread by thread. But peace doesn't just arrive and stay. It's something you have to keep choosing. The company organized a town hall not long after Terry's arrest. HR framed it as a learning moment, a chance to reinforce accountability and respect in the workplace. They asked me to share a few words, only if I felt comfortable. Standing backstage, microphone in hand, my palms were clammy. Public speaking wasn't foreign to me, but speaking about something so raw, so personal, was a different mountain to climb. Adam gave me a thumbs up from the front row. Sophie smiled reassuringly. I took a deep breath and walked out. The room fell quiet. Faces I had once feared to meet now turned toward me with open anticipation. I didn't come here today to relive every painful detail. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. You've all seen what happened. What I want to share is what it felt like. I let the silence stretch. It felt like being invisible while standing in the middle of a crowd. It felt like being told that the truth didn't matter if it was inconvenient, and it felt like drowning, slowly, while everyone else looked away. Murmurs rippled across the room. But then something shifted. I realized that waiting for someone else to rescue me wasn't working. I had to speak. I had to fight for myself, even if my voice shook, even if it cost me everything. I looked out at the crowd, letting my words land. Silence protects abusers. Speaking up doesn't just free you. It forces the world to see the truth. And trust me, the truth is always stronger than lies. When I stepped away from the podium, the applause was loud. But it wasn't the sound that stuck with me. It was the look in people's eyes, recognition. Some of them had their own stories. Some had stood by in silence before. But now, maybe, they would choose differently. Outside of work, I started to feel the ripple effects too. My clients at the gym asked gentle questions when they saw my name mentioned in local articles about workplace harassment cases. Some thanked me for speaking out, admitting they'd dealt with bullying in their own careers, but never had the courage to address it. One client, a young woman named Kayla, pulled me aside after a session. I heard about what happened to you, she said softly. My boss, he belittles me in front of everyone. I thought I just had to take it, but seeing you stand up makes me think maybe I don't. Her words hit me harder than any applause. This was the real aftermath, not the headlines, not the HR statements, but the quiet sparks of courage lit in others. Terry, of course, tried to fight back. His lawyer attempted to spin the narrative, painting him as the victim of an overzealous company and a vindictive coworker. But the evidence was overwhelming. The footage, the threats, the witnesses, all lined up against him. The trial dragged on for months, but in the end, justice didn't falter. He was convicted of harassment, stalking, and property damage. The judge's sentence wasn't just about punishment, it was about sending a message. People like Terry didn't get to thrive on intimidation anymore. When the verdict was read, I sat in the courtroom with Adam and Sophie on either side of me. Terry's glare burned into me as they led him away, but I didn't shrink this time. I didn't feel fear. I felt finality. That chapter of my life had closed. But healing doesn't come from watching someone else fall. It comes from rebuilding what they tried to break. I started therapy again, this time not just to survive, but to grow. I learned how to untangle the knots Terry had left inside me. The doubt, the guilt, the hesitation to trust myself. Week by week, I replaced those knots with something stronger. Self-respect. My relationship with Adam blossomed too. He had stood by me in my darkest moments, but now he got to see me in the light. We took long walks by Lake Michigan, tried new restaurants across Chicago, and laughed more than I ever thought I could again. One evening, while watching the sunset paint the city skyline in orange and pink, he took my hand. You know what amazes me? He said. What? I asked. That after everything you went through, you still smile like this. Like the world didn't break you. I squeezed his hand. That's because it didn't. It tried, but it didn't. Months later, I found myself on a stage again, but this time not for a company town hall. I'd been invited to speak at a local women's leadership conference. The room was packed, hundreds of people listening, waiting. I told my story, not with shame, but with pride. Not because the pain was gone, but because it had been transformed into something bigger than me. I ended my speech the way I had ended my first talk at work. The truth is stronger than lies. And your voice, no matter how small it feels, can change everything. The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for me. It was for everyone who had ever endured, who had ever been silenced, who was still waiting for the courage to speak. Back in my apartment that night, I stood by the window, looking out at the glittering city. The streets buzzed with life, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was part of that life, not hiding from it. I thought about the girl I had been when all of this began, shrinking, second-guessing, desperate to be believed. And I thought about the woman I had become, strong, unshaken, unapologetically visible. Terry had tried to define me by fear. Instead, he had unknowingly given me the fire to rise higher than I ever thought possible. And as I turned off the lights and let the quiet fill the room, I whispered to myself the truth I had finally learned to believe. I was never weak. I was always enough. And if my story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too deserve respect and unconditional love. Because sometimes, the people who try to break us only end up teaching us how unbreakable we truly are.